What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Longa Life Podcast. As always, I am your host, Joe Longa. Really excited to have all you guys here today, and I just wanted to take a second to thank everybody who has taken their time out of their day to listen to our first couple episodes here. The podcast is growing faster than I ever expected, and I'm very grateful for that. So anybody who has taken the time out to listen, the level of gratitude I have for you is something I can't even put words to. So if you've gotten value out of this podcast, I'm super grateful. That is the intention of it. I really would love you to be able to take something away from this to help heal your life and become a better person. So on today's episode, we brought on someone who can do just that. And that is my lovely friend and light worker, Kristen Johnston. She is a spiritual G. She is the owner of Quantum Health and Wellness in Seekonk, Mass, where they do all sorts of great classes on yoga, meditation, breath work, so much. She's a sound healer, a Reiki master, just an overall unbelievable light worker. She's a great friend. She's helped me along my journey tremendously. In fact, in the beginning of this episode, where I normally would have not put this in because it was more of a conversation that her and I were having to start, I decided to just leave the beginning part of the episode in because she was actually coaching me through the beginning of our podcast because I was having a little bit of stresses with it because it is brand new to me. So super grateful for Kristen. I really think you're going to get a lot of value from her. She talks about so many things in this episode. We go into real dive deeps into how she recovered from her opioid addiction using an African plant medicine known as Iboga. We talk about the dark night of the soul. We talk about tribal consciousness. I mean, the list goes on and on. She just killed it. So get your notebook out, get comfy, or if you're on a walk or a jog or a drive, open those ears and get excited because today is the day for Kristen Johnston. Enjoy.
And so the creative idealist is incredibly, they're up here. Like all of their energy is in sort of like this intellectual realm, and the perfectionism can be really crippling. So just like what happens is like the energy isn't balanced. So if you want to, like before you do your podcast, literally shake it out. Like shake out your energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like literally just like shake it out so it gets out of your head. And it gets into your body. And then you're just literally like, you're here to flow. Like you're here just to flow your energy. And this is your creative contribution to the world. Like your ideas and your passion and your thoughts and your mind. And then this is just your vehicle. And it's only your third episode.
That's true too.
Let it flow and you'll learn each time you do it, you'll like learn something, you know? After 5 of these things, you'll be knocking them out. But like, first off, just give yourself like a huge pat on the back for like, you're doing it. You're doing more than what 98% of the world is doing because you had an idea and you followed through with it. So that right there tells you that energy, that divine conduit that is you, is flowing because you have an idea, comes in through the crown, right? It's this idea of like, oh, I'm going to start a podcast.
Right.
To see it, like, what's it going to look like? You start to talk about it to people. You start to embrace the potential. You start to take action by creating the Zoom and reaching out. And then it starts to take place. And then all of a sudden, that's like the second chakra. And then here it is in the physical world. So that right there tells you that your energy channel is clear and aligned. You're perfect. Good.
Now that's how we start, man. Oh my God, that was so good. Because that I see now, I feel better, and I didn't think of any of it that way. Honestly, I just was. I guess I don't give myself that credit enough to get like I'm like, you should be doing better already, like way better already, and it's like, and you said it, like third podcast, like why is it that I should be like in a studio, like crushing it with like these killer, like Oprah style questions, like, you know,
like you have goals. That's a great thing.
Yes. And I feel that, but I also, I sometimes, just like you said, I didn't even think about it in that aspect of all my energies up here, but I do. I'm either locked in this center, like Kyle talked about last night down here, where I'm just like, oh my God, everything's contracting, or I'm like spinning with a gazillion ideas in my brain.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where do I go? How do I do this?
That's the profile. So that's that creative idealist and the charismatic leader. The charismatic leader is like, I've got to move, I've got to take action, I've got to create something in the world that inspires people because I'm inspired and I'm inspiring, right? But the thinker, the part of you that gets stuck in the spinning, in the thoughts, it's like you'll have all these ideas and then it's really the fear of taking action, and it's just fear. It's like, so you got to do your best to get out of your mind and into your body, and then surrender the rest to God.
And that's so cool that you said that too, because before I started this, I was like, I'm going to surrender this time and really just let it happen. Like, I'm not, every other time I had like this format and these questions I really wanted to get off, and like I would almost forget that you or whoever it was talking, because I was too concerned about making sure that I got that question in. And then by the time I got the question in, I didn't listen to anything that anybody said. So I'm like, am I even conducting this, or am I just like waiting for my next opportunity to talk, you know?
And you're in your thinker.
Totally.
The creative idealist can sort of flow. And it's funny because I just did my first podcast interview with a friend a couple days ago, and he said the same thing, that when he first started out, he had this checklist of like what he was going to say and how he was going to say it. And he said that his first interviews felt really rigid, and so he kind of just started feeling like it was a conversation. Like he would just go into it as though it was a conversation. And Kyle and I we just text each other about this same thing, because he was saying how if he's going to be speaking, it's like all of his energy that day is consumed with like what he's going to say.
Totally.
I had a dream like probably a few years ago that I bumped into Carolyn Meese, who's like one of my gurus. I love this woman's work. And I bumped into her in a college, and she said to me, oh, Kristen, she goes, you're going to be a fantastic speaker one day. She goes, but you can't plan your talks. You have to allow them to flow through you. And so we have to trust that what we have to deliver, it doesn't come from outside of us. It comes from within us. What's within us can never be lost.
You're so 100% true, like on that. Because I feel like anytime I do try to be the conductor, it's so jumbly. You can feel the disconnect when it's not authentic. You can feel that. I can feel it, and I almost can feel the person now I'm talking to, even if I'm not, like, even if we were sitting across each other like this, looking through screens, I can feel the disconnect that person feels from my disconnect and what it is that I'm talking about. So when it does turn into a conversation, somewhat like this has been much better just as a talk. And the realness is so much, like, I feel like I'm learning more in 2 minutes than I have the whole time, because I'm actually sitting here just talking to you instead of trying to be like, okay, next time, you know?
We're in the flow. We're in the moment. So
totally.
Let's just keep that intention, and we'll roll that way.
So I need to ask you all sorts of awesome stuff. I really want to know, like, what got you here? What got you to the place of wanting to discover this part of yourself? Like, what was your childhood like? What brought you here?
You know, it's such a good question, because I think that when you end up on like an authentically spiritual journey, I don't think it's ever really like a conscious desire or decision. It's almost the way that it's like the soul wants to come into consciousness. Like I remember being a little kid and always being curious. Like I remember asking my mom, you know, like, what happens when you die? Like, what is reincarnation? And there were these questions that I had from a really young age that just no one around me had answers to, you know? And but I always had those. I was always really inquisitive. I wanted to know things, you know. And but I think we lose touch with who we really are. It's part of the veil of forgetfulness that we enter into when we incarnate into bodies on planet Earth. Like if we remembered who we are from the very beginning, we couldn't really go on our soul's journey because we would already know. So like I look at it, I always have this image of kind of like a clock, you know, and it's like we have to get to 6 o'clock. We have to get as far from our truth as possible until we can start coming back to soul. And so like once we hit 6 o'clock, that's when we begin our journey back to source. And to me, that's like the spiritual journey. So the first half of my life, kind of my teenage years, my adolescence and my teenage years, I was pretty lost and like really lost. And that's really? That's what led me on this path. And so like I said before, it wasn't really a conscious decision. It was really suffering. It was like a deep level of soul suffering of like, I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here. I didn't have a connection to my passion anymore. I had sort of been consumed by this ego and this idea of who I was supposed to be. And I think that's the greatest wound that a person can really endure, is the severance from our authenticity. Like, really?
I like that. Yeah.
I think that really is, it's the most painful thing.
It is. It because if you're not being your authentic self, your whole body and aura and environment shows you that you're not rocking on where you're supposed to be at.
Yeah.
And it's awful.
Exactly, right? Because you feel it. Like we come into this world as children and we know who we are. Like we know we're incredible. No child on this planet doesn't think they're incredible until someone outside of them tells them. Right?
It's 100% true.
Yeah, they come in confident. They come in like joyful because their life force energy is still flowing through them unobstructed. It's like that channel, there's no blocks in it yet. The blocks come when life becomes painful. And that's when we start to resist the flow of energy from moving through us. And so usually by the time we're, mid-20s, our energy system is so jammed up because we've experienced so much trauma and we have no idea how to deal with it because no one ever teaches us this shit.
No. And the people who are teaching us are people who have experienced the same things but didn't have teachers. So
exactly. How do you become conscious in an unconscious world? And so it's not our parents' fault that we're fucked up. It's not society's fault. It's just the way it is. But now we're having this resurgence of knowledge. And so our ancestors, like our distant ancestors and our ancient cultures have understood this wisdom. You look at the yogis and the mystics and the masters, and they understood this stuff. And we're coming back around to really seeing value in it because we're realizing that what we've placed value on in the past is not, it's like we're sicker than we've ever been. And so
in an age when we have the most science and the most money and the most resources to get rid of these sicknesses, it's strange.
Well, we don't have soul. The world that we've created is a really materialistic world, and it's devoid of soul. And so that's why my message and sort of like my mission for what I stand for is like, make soul your goal. When that's what you're after.
Like that.
Like it's the truth. Like we exist within a spectrum of levels of consciousness, and like we're really limited right now. We're only focusing on kind of like the lower levels of consciousness. Like we're focusing on the body, we're focusing on sensate pleasures and things like that, and then we're focused on power. And so it's like the lower self is just running amok on this.
Yeah, planet. And it's so crazy, and it's almost weird how you wonder how it happened, and you wonder if it happened as a part of a bigger plan. I mean, sometimes I think about plans and if it's all planned, and then I think about
that doesn't seem authentic. I feel like it wouldn't be authentic if it was planned. It needs to flow. So it's such a perplexing thought to go, is this happening because it has to happen because of a plan, or is this part of the flow? And it's the wildest like thought process to try to mesh those together. Like, why did we have to go through as a human race leaving that consciousness? Because we're in a time where you'd think, excuse me, that we'd have way more consciousness than the people of that past, because it was so barbaric. People were killing one another for like looking at them the wrong way or being in the same space that they were in. And you'd think that that would almost make them less conscious than our society today, but it's like we're way less conscious than that, really, in the weirdest of ways. Like, those people got it because they loved Mother Earth, but we're like, I love you, man, but it comes through like a fake veil of I love you, man.
Yeah,
and we destroy all of our earth. And it's just like, it's almost like that barbarous, they was just real. They were being real about their emotions at the time, and they expressed them, you know?
It's like the lower self, we are animals, you know? And
yes.
we're also spirit. And so that's why there's this emphasis on the heart, right? Because the heart is it's the middle ground. The heart is the median point between, yes, we are animals, and yes, we have this survival instinct and the, you know, sexual desires and the need for power, but we also have this incredibly compassionate nature, and we have psychic gifts, and we have intuition, and we have a connection to the divine, and like we have all of it. And so if we're going to become whole and heal, because that's what healing is, to heal is to become whole, we have to remember all of who we are, and we have to bring it into harmony and balance. We can't be like, in the West, we really focus on the material world above all else, and then in the East you see a lot of you know, emphasis on spirituality, and to the point where they're, you know, like they're fasting for extremely long periods of time, and they're almost like denying the body's needs in order to find union with the divine.
They're almost on like one side of the extreme.
Exactly. And so we see these extremes, where I think like right now more than ever, we need to come into harmony with all of who we are. We can't find healing and wholeness by denying pieces of who we are. We are animals, and we are spirit. We are energy, and we are matter. We're a full spectrum. And so we just have to remember that and know how to live in harmony. But it's a journey to get there.
Right.
And we're just to speak to what you said about, you know, is this part of a plan, or is it like, why would we have to, you know, go through all this? I think that it's a way for us to experience ourselves, right? Like, we couldn't know unity if we didn't know separation. We have to experience ourselves as separate. We can't know light if we don't know shadow. We can't know. And so that's like, I always invite people, if you're in the midst of like a dark night of your soul, and like you're stuck and you're suffering, look for the silver lining, because it's there. There's always an opportunity to learn and to grow and to evolve from what we're going through. And for me, that's kind of where I found myself. I was in my late teenage years, and I was really like, I was lost. I had developed a serious addiction to opiates. So I was a drug addict. My relationships were horrible. I didn't trust anybody. I was really like my life was a mess, you know? And that's when I started seeking. Like I was like looking for a better way, because I was suffering, you know? And I didn't know I was going to end up on a spiritual path. I look at it like that was my initiation. I even think that my soul contracted it, said, okay, like basically like addiction is the fastest way back to God. So we'll plug in an addiction here in your teenage years so you can get back to God as quickly as possible. That's that I look at it, you know? So I don't.
Not everybody can do that, Kristen. That's a beautiful thing. Like that to me, I wonder where that comes from in you, because that's to find a silver lining in a dark, dark place like that and go, I'm going to fix it. It just blows my mind. It really does.
There's so many people, right? Like if you find people who have genuinely healed, it doesn't matter if it was, cancer or molestation or these things that the average human ego cannot wrap their brain around. It just says, no, there's nothing good about that. There is nothing positive. But when you find a person who has, uncovered their soul in the midst of those things, they will tell you that is the best thing that ever happened to me, because it's what makes you realize your authentic nature. And when you reconnect with your soul, everything you've ever been through in life serves you in that way. And I've gotten to the point in my own life where I'm like, I'm so happy with who I am. And I know that there's no way that I could have ever gotten there if it wasn't for those dark nights that I experienced, those times where I allowed something greater than me to guide me. And that's what it's all about. Trusting that there is something bigger than us.
Like a knowledge bigger than us. I think we see that in nature in itself. I mean, look at how things play out on their own without our involvement. Like, just the one thing I've always noticed as I was driving down the road as a kid with like my mom or anything, I'd always be shocked at how the trees just knew not to grow into the road. Like the tree knows not to grow into the road. It grows like perfectly in an arch over the road and just misses everything. It doesn't grow into the road. How does the tree know not to grow into the road? And that's when I really get into this idea of everything is conscious. If everything is conscious, if you're witnessing it, it's conscious, and you're witnessing it makes it conscious. That type of thing.
That's the way that I view it, is that everything is consciousness. Like consciousness, intelligence is the fabric of our reality. So we're taught to focus only on the little teeny bit of material world that we call matter, when we're ignoring the infinite amount of empty space that's around us. And it's like
passing information.
Exactly. It's all energy, and energy carries information. And so everything has perfect harmony and balance. But humanity has self-reflective consciousness. It has choice, right? Like we have the power of free will, which means we can choose against life. We can choose against growth. Where if you look at other forms of consciousness, for example, trees, like you said, or plants or animals, they rely solely on instinct. They don't have that self-reflective consciousness that can resist growth. So when we resist our own energy flow, which is life's desire to grow and to be expressed, humans, like we have these painful events and in life, and then we resist growth, and we stop the flow of our energy, and the soul, which came here to grow, will sometimes manifest an issue for us that we have to grow through, that like we can't. So it's one of those like wake up or die situations.
Yeah.
Or wake up or suffer.
Wake up or suffer. I like that.
Yeah. And well, that's where I found myself. I was kind of in like a wake up or die. And
oof.
Yeah.
That's dire. Like that's when you know you got to pull the shoestrings up,
Yeah, when you're really like, okay, my life is either going to suck really, really bad, or I just don't really want to live it anymore. And you get to one of those places, and then you start asking those deeper questions. You start wondering, why am I here? What's the purpose of all this? Like what really is the meaning to my life? And when I started asking those questions, something greater than me started to guide me. And I couldn't see it, and I couldn't necessarily feel it, but I knew, like there was something inside of my soul and my heart, and I knew I had this inner knowing that something had my back and had my best interest, just because of the events that started to take place in my life. So really, that's how I became such a lover of knowledge, because it was books. For me, it was really books that led me into this journey. It started with the book The Secret. And it's a fantastic book. Yeah, and it became so widely known. But really, this was the Secret was the first introduction I had to the idea that my thoughts had something to do with my reality. That what I was thinking and what I was feeling was in some way creating what I was experiencing in my life. And after I read that, and I thought, wow, like my life really sucks. I've got all these problems and I can't seem to get my shit together. Could it be like what I'm thinking about that's creating this? Yeah. And so I started to pay more attention. I started to like think about what I was thinking about. And then I really developed this like love of learning. Actually, I felt like The Secret just reminded me of what my soul already knew. And it kind of like my consciousness caught up with itself. That I don't know if it, like I started to remember. That initiated me into the process of remembering who I was as a soul. And so that was the beginning. That was the beginning of how I got to be where I am now.
So when you get like, that's out of control, that you had that kind of feeling of, I try to put this into words for people because it's so difficult to put into words. That moment when you break free from the old version of habits to saying to yourself, I feel this all of a sudden. I have to, the difference between the push against everything and the pull towards something so much better. And it's so hard because I feel like sometimes people hear that and they're like, yeah, but how does that happen? Like, how does that happen? Like we talked about getting down so dark that you have to see the light. I mean, I don't think anybody truly wants to end it or not be here anymore. I feel like when you get down to that dark place, there are some people who have made the choice to not look at the light. And I mean, I have friends who are gone from that.
Yeah.
And to me, I want to know what it is in some people that they just get down to that place of, it's so dark. And like you read a book, but some people don't do that. What is it? What is that? How do you rediscover that? Because you said it too in the beginning, that we come into this earth with it. And I mean, there's a bunch of other things we could get into, like pre-birth trauma and all that stuff. And some people do come into this world with catastrophic traumas. But what is it that makes the soul call so loud to you in some people? And then what do you think blocks that?
I think it's pain. I think it's like the depth of pain, right? Like if your pain in your life is so deep, the only way out is through. And if your pain is so deep and if I'm going to heal, I got to go through this. People just, they just can't. It's like the trauma was so traumatic for them that to relive it or to re-experience it would just be too much. They would rather just not re-experience it,
I know what you mean.
It's and that's the reality. Like life on planet Earth can be really, really hard. And I was fortunate. Like my life had gotten to a really dark place, but I had a pretty solid foundation growing up. Like I knew that I was loved. I had parents that loved me, and we all get wounded. You know what I mean? We all get wounded
in some place or another.
Yeah, nobody gets a perfect experience, because life on Earth it's not utopia.
No. Nope, not yet.
Not yet. So like no one gets out scratch free. But if your wounds are really deep, then the healing work is you have to be supported. And I was fortunate, like I was fortunate to have found a mystery school when I was in my early 20s.
What's that look like?
Oh, it was really, so I actually am a teacher there now. It's called the Reese Thomas Institute of Energy Medicine. And shortly after I read the book, The Secret, And I started paying attention to my inner, kind of like the workings of my inner environment, and started doing the deeper inner work that I needed to do to heal. I was led into this kind of like epic healing journey. And I started studying Reiki, and I started reading about the chakras, and I started understanding energy. And really, it was like I had already had this information stored in my soul. So I get the sense that not just myself, but many of us on the planet today have done this work many, many, many times. And so we just have to remember who we are.
Like in past lives, you mean, in that type of sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remembered this information, and it was like I couldn't get enough of it. So I started, just really studying all this stuff. And I was led to this mystery school, which I didn't know what a mystery school was at the time. I just knew that I ended up there very synchronistically. It wasn't a strategic plan. It wasn't my strategy. But when I walked into this building, every ounce of my body knew that that's exactly where I was supposed to be. And so I signed up. I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. Like, I just was like, yes. I just said yes to the adventure. And that's when I got plugged into a tribe, like a community of people who were doing this work. Like, you really can't do this work on your own.
I was going to ask you, how important was that tribe for you?
I was like, so we have tribal consciousness is a facet of who we are as humans. And like, we get plugged into a tribe when we're born. And like, that's our tribal consciousness. What our parents and our family believe about life, we inherit that. We don't consciously choose it. We inherit it. Then we swear loyalty to it unconsciously.
Right.
And not all of it's good.
No, like we said in the beginning, you're getting taught by people who may not have been taught, Exactly.
And so our job is to actually surpass our tribal inheritance. But you can't tell your family that, because like, it's a threat to the tribe. The tribe says we all think the same, we behave the same, we do the same things, and we survive. That's tribal consciousness in a nutshell. So if you get one person who's like, man, I'm not okay with being screwed up in my life. I want to be better. I want to heal. I want to remember who I am. Like, it's threatening to the unconscious tribe that we're plugged into. So for me, finding the healing school was finding a conscious tribe. It was like finding a tribe of people who held a space for me to grow into the person that I was always destined to grow into. And so that was a really foundational aspect of my journey. And it got to a point, it was a 3-year training program. And in my second year of the program, that's when I realized I can't be an addict and be a healer at the same time.
Yeah, it's tough.
They weren't congruent energies. Like, because in the school I was learning to love myself, and I was remembering who I was as this being of light and this sort of like creative, whimsical, mystical, magical kind of person. Then like in my life, I wasn't really behaving in alignment with the person I was becoming in school. So there was this incongruency between who I wanted to be and how I was behaving. So that's when I realized like I had to change. I had to level up, and I had to kick the opiate addiction. And so,
how is that? I know that's a plague that's worse than the COVID-19 virus, just so you know, everybody.
From the moment I realized that I had an addiction, I was trying to find a way out of it, but I was doing it in all the ways that, modern medicine tells us we should. Go to these meetings and take these, substitute medications, and nothing, that just didn't work I was too connected to my soul. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, because it does work for a lot of people. It just didn't work for me. So I had tried all those things, and without success. And that's when I always turn to spirit whenever I'm kind of really stuck in there's like a hard spot in my life. I always ask for guidance. And so I was watching a documentary on Netflix one day, and it was called Facing the Habit. and this guy, he was like a Wall Street banker, and he had all this money, but he had an opiate addiction, and he did this plant medicine called Iboga, and it healed him of his addiction, and I watched this experience that he was having, and there was no meetings, there was no maintenance, there was no methadone. It was like, here's this plant, you go on this inward journey, and you find healing. And so watching that video, I started to get the same feeling I got when I found the energy medicine school. There was just this knowing inside of me that, like, that's your medicine, like that's what you need. And so I went about finding it. And
no kidding.
Yeah, and so
that's awesome.
It was so life-changing. It was actually to date, aside from having my daughter, it was the most life-changing experience I have ever had. And it meant that I had to go through, I still had to get honest with the people that I had been lying to about, like, so I still had to go through all the stuff I had been avoiding.
Right.
So I still had to get real about where I was at, but I found this plant medicine, and it changed my life. It woke me up, and it reminded me on such a profound level of who I actually was. Like it really woke me up to an incredibly high level of consciousness. And so I give a lot of credit to the energy medicine school and the plant medicine for becoming the person that I am today, for sure.
That's beautiful. Can you explain a little bit of the process of, like, what Iboga is like how, what it is, how you administer it, what the experience might have been like for you, that type of stuff?
Yeah, so it's I went to a woman. She was a provider, so she had a nursing degree and a background in the medical field, and so I knew that I was safe. It's definitely not something you would ever try to do, like, on your own. You need someone who knows what they're doing. But I found that woman, and so it's Iboga. Just to backtrack, Iboga it's a root bark. It's an African shrub, the root of an African shrub, and there's not a whole ton of information about, there's not a lot of science on it, but it's been used ceremoniously for, forever. Shamanically, it's used for shamanic initiations, and it's just a sacred healing plant. And so what they do know is that it essentially resets the brain to a pre-addicted state. So it resets your receptor sites in your brain. And
wow.
So, yeah.
That's huge.
It's almost, the only way I can really explain it is it's similar to, like, electric shock therapy, where the parts of your brain that stopped firing and wiring in healthy ways because of the habitual the ingestion of chemical substances, it alters your brain chemistry. And Iboga, it resets it. So it's like this, it reestablishes the electrical circuitry in your brain. At least that's what it did for me.
Wow.
And it's so profound. And it also alleviates like 95% of your withdrawal symptoms. So you don't.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's super huge. Like, why aren't they administering this stuff to people? Like, it blows my mind that is not an option for people.
Yeah, well, because it works and you only need it once.
Yeah. There's no monetary value in the long run.
Exactly. So that was, it was life-changing for me, because essentially, even in the midst of my addiction, I was remembering who I was. I knew that I was here to make a change in the world. I knew that it would have to do with sort of spirituality and energy healing. And, like, I knew those things, but I couldn't really apply them until I was free from the addiction. That's what Iboga did for me. It freed me from the addiction. And no, Ibogaine is not a cure for people. It's an interrupter. So if it wasn't for all the knowledge and the information that I had absorbed, I wouldn't have changed at all, because no new information would have been coming into my system.
So I'm sorry to cut you off. So real quick, you would say that's almost like saying this is not something that you just go and do without doing prior work. This is not something that you did some of the work first before you jumped into this.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend either doing the work prior or having like some really good follow-up work with a therapist or a healer or someone who can help you, because what Ibogaine does is what it did for me was it revealed what was stored in my subconscious. It helped me reclaim the pieces of my soul that had been fragmented throughout my life, right? So I re-experienced where I severed myself from my spirit.
Wow.
Yeah, and so like if you don't have the tools to reintegrate or to understand or to hold compassion and empathy and really help piece yourself back together after that, it could possibly even be more damaging than good if you don't have the tools, so.
I agree. I mean, you've seen that in the times when people were using these things recreationally and they weren't really doing them with a purpose of getting to a higher consciousness in the sense of fixing themselves. Exactly. And some of these people got stuck permanently in a place where they didn't want to be in. And that's maybe because the work, the plant, the medicine revealed something to them. And because they didn't do the prior work, there wasn't the ability to work through that knowledge once was revealed to them.
Yeah, it's like jumping consciousness before you're ready.
It's like jumping out of a plane without a parachute almost.
Yeah, you can't expand yourself. You can't, like, these are tools for us, but if we're not ready for them, they can cause more harm than good. So you have to be really honest with where you're at on your journey. Like, I know people who weren't really ready to get clean from drugs, and so the plant, it didn't work for them. They weren't really ready to let go of what was making them sick or stuck. Like, I was ready. I was desperate to change my life, And so you really got to assess your situation, because again, it's like going through the pain. Some people's trauma is so deep and they haven't done enough of the actual soul work where they're ready to heal. Healing is an epic soul journey, and it's like incremental. Like, not all of our souls came here to reach enlightenment in this lifetime. I like to think that it's a potential for everybody.
Me too.
It is a potential for everybody. Like, everybody can recover their masterful nature, but does that mean that everybody's consciousness is ready for it? No, it's just not. So,
well, you can look at that in senses of people who kind of discovered a masterful nature in themselves and weren't ready for it. People like Hitler discovered an ability in himself and a masterful nature of manipulation and the ability to use his words. But I don't think planetary consciously, I should say, he was thinking about the whole at that moment. And we all know what resulted from that.
He carried his power in the shadow. So consciousness on planet Earth is really, it's dualistic, right? Like we have polarity here. We've got a North Pole, we've got a South Pole, we've got a positive charge, we've got a negative charge, we've got light, we've got shadow. It's like, that's how we experience our reality. And so power is the same, like, it's all negotiations of power, and how we wield our power is our free will. And that we have a free will planet, so we can either we can utilize this power, right? Like, look at, I always refer to Disney movies because I'm just like a huge fan.
And they're awesome. I mean, Disney.
They really are. And there's so much hidden symbolism. And like, look at Aladdin, right? Like, if you look at the genies, the Robin Williams, like the blue genie, like that's the power of God, And then you've got Jafar at the end, and like it's the power of the universe wielded through the shadow. It's like the human self wants all the power, but the soul wants power so it can liberate the rest of humanity, not enslave it. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it almost is alchemizing everything we've been talking about, that pull from down, just that, and then you meet in this place in the middle in the heart. And we do so much together with the heart coherence meeting that we do. And for me, all this talk about this is really like just solidifying how important the vibration in this is like the battery center. Like this is it. And it constantly pulsates, constantly sending out waves of vibration, which is what the whole entire thing is made up from. When you and I have talked about with Kyle, the frequencies and the way different frequencies vibrate different emotions. And it seems as though when we're talking about it, it's like it's all ties together. When you're on the low one, and if you're paying too much attention to it, then you're not at full charge in the heart. Also, if you're way up high and you're paying too much attention to this one, then you ain't charging the heart either.
Exactly.
So finding that homeostasis and that balance.
Yes. It's awakening the illuminated heart within.
Mm.
We can live from that place, and we don't have to deny or suppress our human nature, because you can't. Like, if you're in a human body, you can't transcend it.
No, I know.
Right? We've all tried.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So we have to honor it. And so the way that I've actually just completed my first book, sharing this information, it's like reclaiming our basic rights. So like we have a right to our body, and we have to know how to care for it. We have a right to sexual exploration, but we have to honor it and understand it, and to sensual, the right for sensual pleasures, right? Decadent foods. We have a right to those things, but we don't understand our connection, our relationship to that energy, so we abuse it. And that's where we see all of this gluttony, this obesity, this, even just horrific things in our world, pornography, and just we don't value that aspect of our consciousness or power. Just like you explained with Hitler, we don't understand what it means to lead people without the desire to enslave them or have power over them. So like we have to understand our human nature, and we have to reclaim our basic rights in a state of balance and harmony. We have to understand the power of our voice, our communication system. How do we use it? The voice is a sword, right? We can either use it to cut people down, or we can use it to cut them free from chains that bind them.
Wow.
So like we have all this power within us. We are incredibly powerful beings. Power is our nature. How we wield our power is our choice. That's our free will. And so it's like, to me, that's how we heal. And if we reclaim our power and we become balanced individuals within ourselves, we bring more harmony and balance to a world that is radically out of balance right now. Our world needs harmony and balance more than ever. And the only way that we can really offer that is by coming into harmony and balance within ourselves.
How do you, what are some of the things you do to help balance out? I mean, especially with writing a book, I'm sure that congratulations, by the way. That's awesome that you finished that. That's so cool. Super excited about that. Looking forward to it. How do you find balance? I mean, you have children, you have a husband, a house, like a business. How do you balance all this?
Well, I think that like having a why is the most important thing. Like you have to have a reason, right? Like it'll be almost impossible to find balance in your life if you don't have a bigger mission behind why you want to be balanced in the first place. So when I did plant medicine, I was connected to my life mission. I never would have wrote that book if I didn't see it before it happened. Wow. So that was my why, right? Like when I did plant medicine, I saw the cover and the title of my book, and it was titled Heal the People. And so that led me into this why. This is what, because I don't live a perfectly balanced life, but because I have a why, I strive for it when I recognize I'm out of balance.
That's beautiful.
Does that make sense? Like,
oh my God, yeah. Because you showed your vulnerable side right there. Listen, this isn't a mission of like getting to the perfect. It won't ever get there. Like it won't ever get there. And just understanding the flow is the learning.
Exactly. That's what the balance is all about. And if you look at our ancient cult, look at our masterful wisdom of the past. Like we have the yin yang, right? We have the Tao. None of that says be perfect and be rigid and be great. It's
right.
Be balanced, So it's like we have to be able to be honest and say, okay, this is where I'm out of balance right now, right? Like I'm neglecting. Sometimes if I get into my creative modes and I'm like writing, I'll forget to eat. Like I'll forget to eat for like the whole day. I'll be like, oh my God, I just didn't eat today.
Yep. I know what that's like. Yeah.
And that's not balanced, right?
No.
It's like we have to be willing to look at that stuff. But if you don't have a why or a mission behind, like if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, essentially you're in your unconscious. You're in patterns. You're not actually living in the present moment. You're just repeating yesterday's patterns. And then you wonder why you're depressed, or why your life feels stagnant, or why your relationships don't feel vibrant. And it's because, like, are you really in them? Or is your pattern in them?
Are you present to your behaviors? And are you willing to be a self-manager? I think is one of the biggest things. I mean, that's probably been my main focus in my own life, is learning to manage myself. Like you said, in those moments when you're working all day and you're doing and you're doing and you're doing and you're doing, and there's this little voice that goes, I'm hungry. And you just go, still working. Yeah. And then you just shut it off like an immediate second. That little voice that said, I'm hungry. That's the moment that I have to be a manager and go, hey, might want to stop for 5-10 minutes, go eat something, come back. And the productivity that I get when I come back might be 100-fold than what it was if I had just kept the pedal down and drove until midnight, and then end up waking up in the woods somewhere like, oh shit, I fell asleep at the wheel.
Exactly. We have to learn how to listen to our, the many aspects of our consciousness. Like this, what's happening right now is an expansion of our consciousness, because we have access to unlimited information. We've got, where in the past, if you wanted knowledge of the spirit, you only had a limited amount of ways to get it, right? Like you had a pastor or a priest, or like that's how you got to God, was through someone else,
Right.
If you wanted to become learned in any area, you had to become somebody, like you had to become an apprentice, like you needed a mentor, you needed a teacher, you needed to go to school if you wanted to learn certain things. That's not reality today.
No.
Reality today is you've got YouTube. If you want to learn how to change a tire or how to do anything, you just search it, and the answer is at your fingertips.
Do you think there's value lost in that a little bit?
Totally. I think that we always have tools. Whatever we need is available to us. It's how we choose to utilize what we've been given. And just like the voice, right? You can use the voice to either cut people free or cut them down. We can use social media to learn and to grow and to expand our network and to expand our consciousness. Or we can use it to troll somebody else's page or watch Tiger King. Like,
yeah. I totally understand what you mean. I'm feeling that recently from changing. I just built this podcast, so I've built a new page, and my old Instagram page is loaded with stuff that from years of my interests. But those interests have changed, and I haven't changed the Instagram page, but the interests are still coming up on that side. But now I have this new page, and the interests that are on the page are in 100-fold alignment with everything that I want to be a part of. So when I'm scrolling through that page, it's like, damn, whoa, boom, oh my God, that's so true, it's right. And then I'll get back to my other page, just go check something, and I can feel the going like, whoa, I think I've gone off course here. And then you like all of a sudden reel yourself back in, like, where the hell was I?
Isn't it? It's wild to think that, like, one of my favorite Dispenza sayings is, he says it like, if you're not being driven by a vision of your future, you're just a slave to the memories of your past. And so it's like do we, when that again, that's like the why, right? That's our goal. We have to have this we have to be embracing a potential that exists within us. Like, we are all destined for greatness. None of us are special. That's the whole thing. We're all special. The Course in Miracles talks about that too, you know, like the special relationship, and like the ego wants to be special or be different. We all have power inside of us that is infinitely just we have the power of God within us.
We're created in the image. I mean, it says it in the Bible that, you know, and I'm not focusing on a religion, but I'm saying that these works of art, these books, these works of art are explanations of a common truth.
Yes, and the thing is, we've taken them so literally that we haven't really, I can't say we, it's like that's a really general term, but there are a lot of people who have taken them so literally that they haven't been able to extract the truths that are actually found within spiritual scripture. And it's not just the Bible or the Quran or the, you know, there are so many sacred texts, and they all point to this similar thing, and that is that, you know, the kingdom of heaven is within us. The power to create epic life experiences are within us, and right now more than ever we have that access, because we have, like, look at us right now. I'm in my room at my house, but like, you're in my room at my house.
I know. That's wild.
Yes. So
that's that information that's traveling through the air, that whole invisible spectrum of things that we talked about earlier.
We have the field, right? Like
yes, the field, what Joe Dispenza talks about.
Yes, there's a phenomenal book. Lynn McTaggart writes a great book. It's titled The Field. And the internet is a material manifestation of the field, right?
Ooh, I've never even heard that, but you're so right.
Yeah, it's what it is. Like, we literally have this tangible connection to it right now. It's like we're living in an age of information. So if we continue to try to keep the past alive instead of create a future that we want, are we really creating, or are we just all on like a default network in the brain? We're not having new thoughts. We're not having new ideas.
Look at movies. Look at movies. When is the last time you've seen a new Forrest Gump come out? Like something that had that same kind of gravity as a movie like Forrest Gump. You don't see that anymore. Instead, you see somebody remaking something like a Forrest Gump and trying to relive that emotion. It's almost like as a population, we're scared to death to ascend to this next level of human consciousness.
Yes.
Because I think oddly enough, we're getting an example of what that might feel like right now. Because we're all of a sudden not idealizing the people and the things that we once thought. Like, sports are not on TV the way that they were before. You see people out in the woods, like, we're reshaping and thinking, but it was something that had to happen to get us there, and it's almost a beautiful thing.
It's the pattern interrupt, right? We're in the unknown, and so when people ask, people are afraid of psychedelics because they thrust you into the unknown.
Totally.
And it actually does that to your brain, right? So your brain, it becomes this hardwired, like our regular thoughts and emotions and patterns of behavior become hardwired into our brains, because it makes it easy for us to not really have to think so much about what we're doing. The brain kind of like, it's helping us out, because it's like we just all of a sudden we have this pattern. So that means we don't have to think too much about getting up in the morning and making coffee, because it's already, the pattern from yesterday is already there. But what happens to humans is once you've done it so many times, you go unconscious to it. And now you're just in a default mode network. And so a lot of people, they need a major pattern interrupt. And that's why most people don't grow until they have some sort of pain or trauma or something that
some event.
Yeah, some event from outside of you that all of a sudden you can't be on autopilot anymore.
It shakes the fabric of every single thing that you know.
Yeah. Hello, coronavirus.
Hello. It's the truth. I mean, you can't, everything that you wanted to do Friday night hits, you ain't going out to dinner with the family. I'm sorry. You have to stay home and cook. Like, there are ton of people who are for the first time sitting in their house, cooking dinner and eating it with their family. Like that, I used to do that every single night with my family. I talk to so many families now, and that is not a thing anymore. I used to have Sunday dinners with my families, my whole family. We'd go to my Nana's and sit down at a long table and eat Sunday dinner together. I don't know anybody that does that type of stuff anymore. There's too much stuff going on. But now, all that stuff, that illusion, someone turned the button off, and everybody's like, what do we do now? And it's like our natural gravitational pull is pulling us back together and to go, oh, I need, and the forced separation of human connection is making people yearn for it.
Exactly.
Like I yearn to be back with our group. I can't wait to sit down in that damn room. I love the Zoom meetings. I'm grateful for them, but I need your energies to touch my heart directly.
Yeah, human connection. We've undervalued it. But again, there's that right to community and tribe. It's like that's our tribal consciousness. We need it, and humanity has to wake up to realize that we are all one tribe. We are all one tribe of human consciousness. And I think an episode like this, which really touches the whole of humanity, it kind of disrupted a pattern for all of us. And so my hope is that we can move forward from this having grown in our consciousness and not just try to go back, because that's what the ego does. The ego wants to go back to the comfort zone because that's what's familiar. It doesn't mean it's what's right. The way that we've been treating our planet is not right. So we need to move forward from this. And so my hope is that the spirit in us all wakes up to that level where we can collectively see this. But it's going to be people like us who really get it, right? Who see that this was needed. This was, and that's not to, I don't want to downplay it, because people have lost lives and this is a scary and traumatic time.
Totally agree with that. But I get what you're saying too.
Yeah, we needed the pattern interrupt, just like the greatest people, the greatest masters of our time have had some sort of pattern interrupt in their own life that caused them to remember who they were. And humanity right now is being asked to remember who you are as children of the earth, but also as, children of the universe, and reclaim our wholeness and restore harmony and balance to our planet.
It's so true. I mean, wow. This is epic, Kristen. I mean, everything that we talked about, my mind is blown. It's just a beautiful thing. The light that you shine in the world with everything that you do is beautiful. And I'm just grateful Thank you for having gone through the things that you had to go through so you could be a light. Like, I mean, I know it was probably tough at a lot of times, but the value you are giving people right now, for those of you who don't know Kristen, go look her up and I'll have you tell people where they can find you. But I'm telling you, the light you are providing, the space that you're holding for people, you are one of these people. You're right. You're a light. And I'm so grateful that I'm in your presence because you're helping me shine brighter.
Oh, thank you so much. There's nothing lights me up more than this work. And it didn't, it came with these challenging times, but now, like, looking back, every single challenging time has served me, right? Like, if I didn't have major health issues after having been an addict for so many years, I never would have understood what it meant to heal the body. So I wouldn't know about nutrition. I wouldn't know about how to heal the gut, and I wouldn't know how to heal the body had I not experienced the negative side effects of being an addict for so many years. So it's like every shadow has a little bit of light, and every light has a little bit of shadow, and it's all about the balance.
It's all about getting that balance, making that heart, bam, blow out.
That's it.
Kristen, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Like, how can people connect with you, learn more about everything that it is that you do, everything?
Yeah, so I've got a website. It's www.quantumhw.com, and I've got a shop in Seekonk, Massachusetts. And as soon as this whole coronavirus thing blows over, we do weekly meetings there. We do all sorts of classes and workshops, and that's really the in-person place where we heal the people. But people can link up with me online. I'll do online coaching, just any way that I can serve. That's what I'm here to do. So social media too. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and just shoot me an email, go to the website, send me a message, and I'd be happy to help anybody any way that I can.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much again. Everybody, definitely when we get out of this, go check out Quantum, because it's one of those places that you walk into and your energy just changes. You just feel better immediately. So definitely go check that out. Kristen, thank you so much. And this was beautiful. So I'm super appreciative. Have a beautiful day.
Awesome.
And we'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right.
Thank you so much, Kristen.
Bye.
I love you. See ya.
You, man.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. I really hope you guys enjoyed that awesome episode with my good friend Kristen. I hope that you guys go check her out at her store in Seekonk when you can, when we're allowed to go do things like that again. Check her out on Facebook, Instagram, her websites. Connect with her. She's an amazing human being, as you heard, and we scratched the surface of the value that she can provide. She's a beautiful human being. I'm so grateful to all of you for taking your time out of your day to listen to this podcast. It is growing fast, and I'm so grateful for it. It'll grow even faster the more that you listen and share it out to your friends. If it provided value for you, please do that. That's the goal here, is to give you as much value for your life as possible so you can begin to create shift in your life today. So until next week, family, thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. Love you all. Peace.